You know, as an Orthodox Star Wars fan, it is always important that I celebrate May the 4th, and to you I say, hello there. It is one of my favorite days of the year. Star Wars is one of my favorite things. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay, welcome to Square Pegs, and today I want to talk to you about Star Wars video games. Shocker, right? On Star Wars Day, I'm going to talk to you about Star Wars video games on a video game channel? Next thing you're going to tell me, you like Nintendo games, Jay. That's not exclusively what we're talking about today. We are talking about 10 different Star Wars games on 10 different consoles. We're going to kick things off with Nintendo's original home console, the Famicom. And we're looking at Star Wars from Namco. Now, Star Wars from Namco is a fantastic game. It's weird, don't get me wrong, it's a weird-ass game, but it is something that I think a lot of people need to play because it is definitely a unique experience, to say the least. When I say it's based on Star Wars, that's a very loose interpretation of the word based, because, I mean, it's definitely themed after Star Wars. You get to fight Darth Vader. I mean, sure, he turns into a giant scorpion, but you get to fight Darth Vader, you get to go into a Jabba Sandcrawler. It's pretty great. The music in the game is magnificent. The look of the game is shockingly good for an NES title. For a Famicom, for an 8-bit title, it just works. Is it perfect? No, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it's a lot of fun. It's something that I really like. It was one of the first games I bought when I got my Famicom. I actually purchased it from my friend Thor. Maybe we traded. I think we traded. We must have traded for it. And it's just one of those games that I have a lot of fun with. Like I said, not a perfect title, but definitely something that if you are looking for a classic 8-bit way to play a Star Wars game, you could do a lot worse. I think the only other older games than this one are the ones that were either in the arcade or on the Atari 2600, and for me, this is a better experience. So we're going to go from the oldest game on this list to the newest game on this list and bounce over to the Xbox One and talk about something that is kind of the, I don't want to say it's a spiritual descendant of the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter series, because I do think it's a very different game, but Star Wars Squadrons is something that I think a lot of people may have overlooked, especially on the Xbox, because the PlayStation version had VR support, which is, I mean, come on, that's really cool. But I really liked Star Wars Squadrons because of the ability to hop into one of the Star Wars vehicles, go into space, get into dogfights. It's a very basic, straightforward experience, but it works. It works really well, and I have a lot of fun with it. It was a game that came out, and I feel like it was one that, like, it burned fast. It was a flame that burned really fast and burned out really quickly because it just kind of came out at an unfortunate time. It wasn't exactly what people were hoping for. A lot of people were expecting a brand new X-Wing versus TIE Fighter game, and they didn't exactly get that, so they felt a little bit, I guess, put out of sorts with the game. But for me, it's something that I really enjoyed, and I think it's just a stunning game to look at. Like, to see it visually on screen, especially on the Series X, is amazing, because the game is just that system is a powerhouse, and it just pumps out gorgeous graphics for that title. I think we're going to bounce now to the game that I think kind of inspired Squadrons, though. We're going to look at X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Now, when I think of multiplayer gaming back in the 90s, this is one of the first games that comes to mind, other than like getting together on Friday night fights or getting together at the arcade and playing people. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter is something that I distinctly remember playing hours upon hours of, whether it was just the X-Wing game, the TIE Fighter game, or eventually X-Wing v TIE Fighter. They were all fantastic. Now, these are dogfight-based games where you are in space piloting a random Star Wars vehicle, whether it's an X-Wing or a TIE Fighter, go figure, right? Or a Z-95 Headhunter or anything like that, an interceptor, a bomber, and you have specific mission objectives that you need to complete in order to advance. And this is something where I put a ton of hours into it, and playing it now, it's a little bit clunky, I think is probably the best way to put it, just because my computer is not optimized to run X-Wing TIE Fighter. It's too powerful. It doesn't look great. The controls aren't great. It's not perfect on a controller. I don't have a flight yoke anymore, so there's a lot of things in here where it's a little bit of a miss for me, but there's still such that amazing nostalgia to be able to play it that it's just amazing memories. This is on GOG.com, and it's dirt cheap. It's under 10 bucks. I really do urge you to get this if you haven't played this one, or you have played this and you haven't played it in years. Absolutely worth picking up on GOG.com, because it's great to hop back into. Like I said, my PC isn't optimized for it. It's too strong. It's too powerful, Darth. And it's just something where I wish it was a little bit more scaled back, and I'm thinking I might put together kind of a junk PC from the early 2000s to be able to run stuff like this, because I've got so many old PC games that I'm not able to do anything with on my machine right now because I have a disk drive. And the GOG release of it, it's good, but it could be better, or it would be better on an older machine that's actually optimized to, you know, like output in 640 by 480 on a great day. All right, let's go handheld now. Let's talk handhelds. Let's talk Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith on the Game Boy Advance, which is one of my favorite handheld experiences. It's incredible. This is one of my favorite beat 'em ups on the GBA, and it just so happens to be a Star Wars game. You get to play as Anakin or Obi-Wan. You're going through fighting battle droids, fighting monsters. You know, it's such a signature experience and such a wonderful game that I think a lot of people probably overlooked because, I mean, let's face it, at that time, licensed games were not well loved. They were not well thought of, not well regarded. So a lot of people just ignored stuff like this, and you are missing out. The game is so good. It is a great challenge. It has fantastic gameplay, a really good example of how to incorporate something that is incredibly advanced like force powers or something like that onto a less powerful console like the GBA and still make it a compelling experience. It's such a fun game, and I will say it's a bit of a bitch to track down because it's starting to gain some traction and popularity, and more people are hanging on to it than they are getting rid of it. So if you see it, grab it because it's definitely worthwhile. Xbox 360 now, and there has to be a Lego game represented on here. Of course there does. They're Lego games. They're pervasive. They carried the Star Wars franchise in the video game universe for a while. When consoles moved into that Xbox 360 PS3 generation, the Lego games kept things moving forward for a lot of licenses, whether it was Batman, despite the fact that we had the Batman Arkham games, the Lego games were probably the ones that sold better. Same thing with the Lego Star Wars titles. And Lego Star Wars 3: The Clone Wars is one that I have a soft spot for. It plays like a classic Lego game. Like, you're not going to get anything terribly advanced here. It is a Lego game at the end of the day. But it's a Lego game based on one of my favorite animated series and one of my favorite Star Wars experiences. Like, I maintain to this day, Clone Wars is the best Star Wars experience since the original trilogy. The stories that were told were deep and mature and amazing, and the characters that were introduced were fantastic. Characters like Ahsoka Tano, Captain Rex, Commander Cody, who actually got fleshed out and made into a real character and not just a clone caricature for like he was in the prequels. It was something where we really started to develop these characters and these personalities for these characters that have been moved forward now and are still used to this day. A lot of that was present in the Lego Star Wars 3 video game. Now, it was a Lego game before they were adding in voice acting and things like that, so it's a lot of pantomime and things like that, but you still got the signature Lego game experience with a fantastic license like Clone Wars. It's perfect. Okay, that's not true. None of the Lego games are perfect, but it's a fantastic experience and something you should definitely check out if you are a fan of Lego games, and especially if you love the Clone Wars. Definitely worth checking out. I swear y'all are probably sick of me talking about this one at this point, but we're going over to the Nintendo Switch now, and I want to talk about Star Wars Pinball. Now, if you're not a fan of video pinball, just fast forward to the next game because you're not going to get your mind changed on this one. Star Wars Pinball is a collection of pinball tables. I think there's 19 or 20 tables in total, ranging everywhere from the original trilogy all the way up to Solo, all the way up to Rebels and Clone Wars. All the tables are uniquely designed. All of them have their own unique characteristics, their unique traits, and they're all really, really well done, and they are super fun. It is such a great collection of games and such a great collection of just digital pinball titles that it just works. It's a beautiful game. It's a fantastic game, and it's so much fun to play. It's one that I legitimately consider a hidden gem on the Nintendo Switch because I think a ton of people overlooked it. And when I bought it, it was like legit budget clearance title. I think I got it for under $10, and I have more than gotten my worth out of that $10 purchase. It is magnificent. If you dig video pinball, you need Star Wars Pinball in your collection. It's wonderful. All right, let's talk now about the Xbox One. Kind of the forgotten child of the Xbox family, I think, because so many people have a love for the original Xbox. Everyone loves the 360 except Gary. Sorry, Gary, I know you don't care for it. I apologize for putting words in your mouth. And I think a lot of people do like this Xbox Series X when they get past the fact that there aren't any first-party games for it. But I want to talk about the Xbox One because there's a game that released on it that I've played on also on the PS4, but especially on the Xbox One is where I played it mostly, and that is Jedi Fallen Order. Telling the story of Cal Kestis and walking you through his journey of self-discovery, and it's a magnificent game with brilliant combat. It's a Souls-like game, and I don't usually get into Souls-like games, but I can stomach the difficulty because of the license. Because it is the Star Wars universe, I can get into it, and I am invested in Cal's story. I have not yet had a chance to play the sequel that released this last year. I think it was 2023 is when it dropped, but I'm really looking forward to getting into it. I know there were some bugs with it, but it's still something I think is going to be amazing, and to continue Cal's story is something I am all about. One of the things that I love about the Star Wars universe, especially with regards to video games, is that the license just lends itself to a wide variety of games. We've had everything from fighting games like Masters of Terras Kasi, I unapologetically love that game, to ridiculous demolition derby games like Star Wars Demolition, which I don't unapologetically love that game. But one of the things that I do really like is the fact that we got a brilliant racing title out of it, and that is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. This is the Dreamcast release. Now, I originally played this on the N64, like I think everyone in America did, but the Dreamcast release is my personal favorite just because it does look better. I think it plays a little bit better. The controller just feels better when I am playing this game using a Dreamcast controller over the N64 Trident, so I'm going with the Dreamcast release here just because I love it. You can play as a bunch of different pod racers. You go to a bunch of different tracks. It's kart racing. It's Star Wars kart racing. You're just using the pod racers that were in Episode 1, and I think it's wonderful. This was the only N64 cartridge I held onto from my admittedly paltry N64 collection when I was younger, and it's something that when I started collecting for the Dreamcast again, I made sure I tracked it down pretty quickly because I do love it so much. It's seen numerous re-releases too. There is a release on the Switch, and I'm pretty sure on the PS5 and the Xbox Series as well. So if you are interested in the game or you have fond memories of it and you want to play it on a modern console, the option's there. It's just wonderful. It's so much fun to play. All right, now on to one that is probably a less loved game, but for me, I guess I kind of enjoy it just because it's one of the few games I have for my 32X, and that's Star Wars Arcade. And this uses the 90s Sega Star Wars Arcade game. It's a port of that, and it's honestly, it's really good. I am putting this on here mainly because this was a gift from a viewer named John. John and I used to work together. John has sent me a ton of stuff over the years to the channel just because he wants me to have it and he wants to see it loved, and it truly is. I am a big fan of the 32X, despite the fact that it is a massive, colossal, I just think ridiculous failure. I think that's probably the best way to put it, but it's an underappreciated console as well because there's actually some really, really fun games on there, and this one is one of them. If you ever played the arcade release back in the 90s, which hung around, it felt like forever in Walmart entranceways, you're going to love this one, and it's definitely worth checking out. I just think it's great. It's so cool to have such a faithful arcade port on hand, just ready to go. All right, and we're going to close it out with, I think, probably my favorite game on this list that we've talked about today, and is one of the premier releases for the Nintendo GameCube, and that is Star Wars Rogue Squadron Rogue Leader. Now, the original Rogue Squadron game on the N64 is a brilliant piece of kit. It's a fantastic game, but everything it did well, Rogue Leader does like 100 times better. I just think this game is nearly perfect. Like, for something that is almost 25 years old at this point, the fact that the graphical capabilities of this game that was designed by Factor 5 just shows exactly how forward-reaching they were. The graphics are incredible. The soundtrack of the game is magnificent. The controls that they were able to put as detailed and careful control scheme as they did into a GameCube controller and make it just a seamless and flawless experience is something that cannot be overlooked. It's a nearly perfect game with a huge variety of mission types that, well, maybe not mission types, but at least locations. So you're going to be able to see all these different areas in the Star Wars universe and have just an incredible experience doing so. One of my favorite games on the Nintendo GameCube, and something I think every GameCube collection should have, is Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. There you have it, my friends. 10 Star Wars games, 10 different consoles, 10 different play opportunities, 10 different ways to enjoy one of the greatest fictional universes ever created. But those are just my 10. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what Star Wars games you suggest down in the comments below. because there are such a wide variety of opinions and such an incredible array of Star Wars games out there that I would love to hear your thoughts. Till next time, folks, I've been Jay. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't done so, click the like button down below. The engagement really helps the channel. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, hey, this is a great opportunity and I'm so stoked that you're here. Click that subscribe button, stay along, let's have some fun. And of course, as always, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. May the 4th be with you.